Welcome to episode 23 of the Construction Leading Edge podcast. My name is Todd Dawalt, and my goal is to provide the tools and resources you need to grow your leadership skills, grow your business, and grow your income. Today we talk with Torrey Hawkins, president and founder of Angler Construction out of Houston, Texas. And if you've been listening to the podcast for a while, that name probably sounds familiar because I interviewed Torrey about a year ago. And in that interview, he talked about starting a business in Houston in 2008, which was a terrible economic time, especially bad for the construction industry. And in that interview, he talked about the power of focus, burning the ships, and eliminating all options. He has been wildly successful. When we talked to him last year, his company was doing about $30 million in revenue, and he is on track to do about $50 million in revenue and gone from, I think, 12 employees last year, and he's at 22 employees currently. And in this interview, he'll be talking about the things he's learned over the past year, some of the challenges that his company has faced, being in Houston in a market that is very impacted by oil and gas prices. And as you know, in recent months, oil prices have hit the bottom. He talks about how he's been able to stay focused, stay disciplined, and really transition from a doer to the leader. So really good stuff. I got a lot out of this interview. I'm confident you will as well. So let's jump into it. Here we go. All right, Torrey. I appreciate you being on the podcast again. It's been a year. How have you been doing for the last year?
Yeah, Todd, you're more than happy to be involved. The past 12 months have been things have been going really well. The economic conditions in Houston have been interesting. With the changes in energy prices and all of the businesses that are tied to it, has definitely raised a anxiety and stress level around and with a lot of our clients. But we've continued to be successful. We've continued to gain market share and increase margins, which in construction, those kind of seem to work typically in polar opposites. So it's nice to see the synergies of them working together and getting more work and able to make a little more money by doing so.
Great. Well, you were on the podcast about a year ago, one of the very first, maybe the first interview, I think. For those folks who haven't listened to that interview, one, I strongly recommend that you go back and listen to it. We talked about the importance of focus, and you talked about burning the boats and what your approach was and your mindset was when you started the business. But for those who haven't heard, give us a brief recap of the kind of work you're doing and the size of your company and the nature of your business.
Sure. Angler Construction, I started it 5 years ago, and what everybody says is kind of the worst economic conditions our country has faced in a very long time. And I had plenty of people saying, what are you doing and why would you be doing this and how are you going to put food on the table? But it was kind of, as I tell people, when you don't really have any other options, sometimes you have to be successful because, failure is not an option either. Mm-hmm. So, we really grind it out early. We're able to pick up some good clients by, doing what we said we were going to do and delivering a quality product at a fair price. And, as the economy has come back, the Houston market has done well. Angler Construction has been able to grow with it. Our core competencies are ground up tilt wall buildings, distribution center style facilities that range from, say, 50,000 square feet up to 300,000. That's your kind of bulk distribution center style product. We do a lot of corporate interiors also, working with companies around as they move, renovate existing or new spaces that they go into. And we've even started to get into the retail construction market, working with a lot of retail developers here, helping them as they're building shopping centers, renovating shopping centers, just because of the significant rooftop growth that has occurred in Houston over the past 5 years and the synergies between the light industrial market and the retail market. We thought this would be a good market segment to expand in and be able to utilize subcontractors between both product lines.
Gotcha. So ballpark size of your company, can you tell us either employee size or approximate annual revenue so
Sure.
we have a general idea of what size you're at?
Yeah, employees, we have 22 employees now, and we are on target in 2015 to do almost $50 million. So
Wow.
I think that's almost double where we were when you and I talked a year ago. Our goal was about 20 in 2014, which we hit. We probably should have done closer to about 25. Unfortunately, just had some weather here towards the end of last year and delays in the city of Houston, which some projects got pushed into 2015. So we were able to start with really a backlog in January 1st, 2015, equal to the total revenue that we did in 2014.
Wow. You mentioned the impact of oil prices. What has that done to your business?
You know, I think in the long term, surprisingly, it's going to be a benefit. It was so crazy here in Houston for a little while that I think we lost a lot of market fundamentals, and there was kind of a philosophy, if you build it, they will come. And because there was so much velocity, there was so much activity, companies had so much cash on their balance sheets that they were just looking for things to do. Well, when your client's revenue gets cut in half, they start really evaluating what's a priority and what is not. So projects have gone back to what is a core Houston type project, what leases, what people need, what will be absorbed, and so in the long term, I think it's a benefit. In the short term, there's definitely some nervousness and concern over what's going to happen with some of these energy related companies that were new, getting started, borrowed a lot of money. So it's a nervous excitement in some ways, but I think it's going to change the Houston market also. There was a significant amount of very, very high-end office buildings being constructed, multifamily, and those projects are either going to be put on hold or not come out of the ground, which is going to allow more trades to come back to kind of the core Houston market. So, I always say it's one of those things, we were going 120 miles an hour down the highway. Well, if you're ever going 80 and you speed up to 120 and you come back to 80, you feel like you're crawling, but really you're still going 80 miles an hour. It's just all relative to what you were doing.
Yeah. It seems like the developers and capital sources we didn't learn our lesson very well from the 2008 crash.
Right.
What I've seen is that there's, like as you said, there's a lot of cash, a lot of equity out there, and people want to deploy capital, and things are going good now, and they're putting up buildings that that are speculative, and at some point when supply exceeds demand by so much, it's just not good. So from a contractor standpoint, how do you look at opportunities like that, and kind of what are the early indicators of a bubble that you're looking for?
It's funny. I was meeting with my surety agent back last July, and we were talking, and he kind of asked me the same question. And as going through two of these now, I always, and I hate to say it, when superintendents are a very critical part of any general contracting company's success. But there is a true market range for salaries for any employee. If you had looked what a ground-up superintendent was making in Houston last June, it was probably 30 to 40% above where they were a year ago. Because of the demand and the amount of projects that were coming out of the ground at that point. And I felt like you were starting to see employees, project managers with minimal experience, superintendents with minimal experience being very overcompensated for their resume. And, I told my surety agent, I said, this is one of the things that worries me because, people are asking for more money than what is in projects. So either the GC is paying for it and taking it off his bottom line, or he's going to have to try to make it on the next project. So, to me, that was one of the big telltale signs that we were getting, to maybe not a bubble, but to a, definitely a frothiness in the market of, let's not worry about true economics. Let's just worry about, getting as much product on the ground as we can. And that's back to, what you were talking about with equity sources and debt, just wanting to deploy capital, because if they're paying a return on it, they have to get it out there and make the spread, and they were less concerned about the outcome of that project versus just the deployment of the cash that they have in their bank account. So.
Yeah, it seems like when either the contractor or the bank or the big insurance company who has millions of dollars to invest, when they start thinking, let's just go and we'll figure it out later, either figure out how to staff the job or figure out how to compensate that project manager, or we'll figure out how to make a return on it, or we'll figure out how to get it leased, that seems to be the first step in the wrong direction.
Exactly.
We're all so optimistic and overconfident sometimes that we just miss the fundamentals and we get away from the discipline. I think that's what's interesting, is that contractors have we have this mindset, and we have to have this confident, innovative, almost invincible mindset to start a business. But you get a little bit of success, and then you start veering away from the discipline that got you successful.
Right.
And you see a lot of contractors who go down because of success,
right.
not necessarily because of bad market conditions. So
right.
it's an unusual business, but sounds like things are going great for you. When you look back over the last 12 months, what would you say was one of the biggest wins for your business in the last year?
It's got to be the we've brought in some very high quality clients, and when I say that, they are great guys to work for. We don't run into payment issues with them. They listen to us. They value our opinion when they're looking at opportunities, and that's what's helped basically almost double that revenue, is people have seen what we've been doing over the past couple of years, and are starting to, I guess, you would say in some ways, drink the Kool-Aid and see what we are doing differently and want to work with us as much as we want to work with them. Like you just spoke to, we had some competition that has gotten into other markets, guys that did what we did, and now they want to go build a 20-story office high-rise, or they want to build a 10-story hotel, and that wasn't their core competency, and they moved into these more glamorous markets, and allowed us to kind of come in behind them and pick up market share by doing what we do and doing it well. And so it's really, we had a big 5-year anniversary party a couple weeks ago, and said, this is invited all of our clients that helped start kind of the business to thank them for the work, and said, we wouldn't be here without you all, and your trust in us and allowing you all to help us, get to where we are, and that just from a person just feels good, that you're doing what you say and you're seeing the rewards from it, and the top line shows it, and so does the bottom line.
Yeah, it seems so simple and so unsexy, just to be consistent,
right.
to be honest, and say what you're going to do what you're going to say, take a lump every once in a while, but it just works, doesn't it?
Right. If like you said, this isn't brain surgery or anything. It's just very simple. Do what you say you're going to do, get it done on time, charge a fair price. Even if there's an issue out there, you discuss it with the client. They may be upset at the issue, but they're not upset at you for hiding, lying, sweeping it under the rug. I mean, it's, always, I have a kind of a philosophy is you just go with what your gut tells you to do, and, 99.99 times you'll be right. It's when you stray away from that people get kind of brought into bad directions or bad circumstances.
We're going to take a quick break from the interview and hit on something that a lot of contractors that I talk to are really concerned about. It's also something that I have personally spent a lot of time thinking about. It's cash flow. Asking questions like, how am I going to make payroll? How am I going to pay all my vendors this week? If you may own or manage a small construction operation and you struggle with cash flow, you are not alone. The vast majority of small businesses do. You work on a project for a month or more, you front the cost for labor, fuel, materials, you pay phone bills, insurance, bonds, and overhead, and then you don't get paid for 30 to 60 days. Besides stress, being in cash flow crunch mode causes a lot of other problems. For one, you get really short-sighted and you begin to make decisions for the short term. What do I have to do to keep the doors open this week? You also start playing to not lose instead of playing to win, to use a sports analogy. And it's almost impossible to grow a business under these conditions. To help you out, I will be hosting a live online training or a webinar soon on how to get out of cash crunch mode and upgrade your profit margins, where I will share at least 5 of the strategies that I personally used to get the company that I ran out of cash flow crunch mode and make it more profitable and ultimately grow it from about $4 million in revenue up to $10 million in revenue in just a few years. Now, I am not a finance guy, so I'm not going to be talking about complicated strategies, but I will be sharing some ideas that work for me that I'm pretty confident you can put into action immediately. If you want to reserve a seat for this training, go to constructionleadingedge.com/cashflow to get registered, or just go to the website. You'll find a link there on the page to get registered. Now, let's get back to the interview with Torrey. You're a guy, you've doubled your business practically. You've experienced 90 to 100% growth in your business in 12 months. And, a lot of people in your situation would start to think they've got a big S on their chest and they wear a red cape and they're invincible. And, they get shiny ball or shiny object syndrome and they start chasing other opportunities. I'm assuming you probably had some other opportunities to go into different areas. As you mentioned, some of your competition has gone into other markets, kind of veered off the path that got them where they were. Talk to me about what's your mindset when you analyze an opportunity like that, and how do you maintain discipline to keep doing the stuff that got you where you're at?
It's definitely difficult. But, I've just looked at it from a point of view that, we want to do what's easy. And while that may sound like a bad comment, or who wants to do what's easy, I just have to know that getting into, we've looked at getting into the super, super high-end Class A office interiors at, these guys are doing $400 to $500 a foot downtown after hours and weekends, and working with these law firms and energy companies. And, we tried it, and you know what? We just weren't that good at it. And so instead of trying to do something we weren't that good at, we just said, hey, this isn't right for us. We appreciate the opportunity, but, that's not what we do, and that's not what we do well. But looking at retail, I can move a lot of subs from the industrial market into the retail construction market. It's a very easy transition back and forth. Superintendents can move back and forth. There are a lot of synergies between it. A lot of developers, owners, clients own the same product type, whether it's a retail or industrial building. So they're looking to deploy capital between different projects. So, part of it's just learning and realizing what you're good at and what you're not. And when you're not, picking up on it very quickly and instead of continuing down a road where you're not going to be successful.
Definitely. Do you ever feel like you're missing out, though? Do you see an opportunity and you're like, man, I just love to sink my teeth into, whatever that, whether it's, solar is going to be huge. Man, we should, it looks like a huge opportunity there. Do you have those urges where you just got, a desire to jump into something new, but, the angel on your other shoulder is telling you, Torrey, just stick with what got you where you're at? I mean, do you have those thoughts and that tension?
Sure. I mean, who doesn't? Who doesn't see your competitor building a bigger building or, doing something cool and different?
Right.
But, it's got to be right. I'm not going to do something just to do it or, to do it and to lose money. Because I like all the people that work with me, and that's how you run companies out of business. Mm-hmm. So, I'm just not an ego guy. And I don't need to, have my signs everywhere to say I'm doing everything. I want to do what we can do to make money and have people that enjoy coming to work and, and grow through a controlled growth pattern. Because I think opportunities seem to come. It's just knowing when's the right time to strike and when you're not ready to do something. And it's hard to walk away, but we had one project that we just, we got invited to look at, and I just said, hey, this isn't what we do, and if I do it, it would affect so much more of my business that it's not worth it,
Yeah, and that's what you walk away from is probably, and maybe in some cases more important than the projects that you agree to take on. That is a valuable skill and a very important one. Let me ask you this. What has been one of the biggest challenges that you faced in the past year with, a business that has grown like it has, with an economy that's adjusted like it has? What's been one of the biggest challenges that you faced as a business owner?
Well, it's always going to be the people that work for the company. And that challenge is a great opportunity. But when you come from doing everything yourself, when I started this, I was the project manager, the superintendent, the laborer, did the accounting, to now having to step back and allow people the opportunities to be successful, and learn how to be stern and express expectations of employees and expectations of the projects, because to go, when we spoke a year ago, I think I had 12 employees. So we've doubled in size. So it's, making sure that people come on board, have the same, the right attitude for a successful project, and putting the clients first, and, to make sure that the corporate mindset and philosophy and image that is portrayed out there is the same regardless of who you talk to, internally. We've had to make changes. We've had people who came on board and didn't work, and we've had to, to make those changes, and it's a tough one, but for the overall success of the company, it's something that you have to do. Growth is hard, and, why I said earlier about doing the easy thing, it still comes with a lot of challenges that go along with it, and, I can't go to every project every day. I have to trust the guys that work for me, that they're telling me what's going on out there, and question, but give them the authority to, to run their jobs. And, from somebody who's very hands-on, it's very difficult to do.
Sure. And that, I think that would sum up the situation for a lot of business owners. They start out from the technical side, whether it's in the field, running a piece of equipment, or a project manager, and to move to the CEO is a huge jump. What were some things that you did, like really practical things that you did to make that transition from being project or equipment or work oriented to the CEO being business oriented?
Like you're saying, it's very difficult to go from the doer to the leader, because the doer can just, you can just kind of knock down walls and get everything done. From the leader, you have to, make sure that all the walls are where they need to be and everybody is marching in the right direction. And it's a very difficult challenge. I really try to work on our policies, procedures, internal operations, to make sure that we are, when we start a project, these procedures are followed. When we finish a project, these procedures are followed. Our weekly meetings, here are the updates that I expect from everybody. Are we following up with the utility companies? Are we working on these tasks? I've been lucky or blessed to have hired a lot of really great individuals who don't need a ton of babysitting or me looking over their shoulder. Sometimes they just need a little help and a little guidance, but I'm not having to micromanage. And so it's, making sure you add to your team through the right individuals. Something else that I've been doing is, it's kind of interesting. I've just started working with a management consultant on a monthly basis, who, really the first step was they took down, and I took what's called the Berkman test, and they break down my personality and how do I work and what makes me happy, which then allows me, and our next step is to take that to our senior level managers, our VPs, and then to our project managers, and then learn how they work. So people can see, they may be doing something that they've done for their whole life, but that doesn't mean they like it. And so what can they do in their job to do what they really like in their job, and try to play people for their strengths instead of forcing them to do their weaknesses. And so that's something that we're working on going forward, for everybody to kind of improve their understanding of themselves. And then when you understand yourself better, you can work into a team environment much better. And it's a really kind of a cool thing that we're kind of in step 2 of it. But it was very interesting to see things that I was doing internally without realizing I was doing in a very black and white situation. And it's kind of funny when you see it. You go, "Oh yeah, I did that last week. That's terrible." But you think you're doing the right thing, and it really in leadership skills, and it's probably maybe not the best way to handle things.
So what I'm hearing you say is that some of the things you did was you were focused on like processes and policies and systems to bring order to your projects and the way that your company operated, and then you're focusing on the people, which that probably catches some people off guard, that you're focusing on like the emotional intelligence, self-awareness, dealing with people. But I'm with you there. I interviewed a guy named Brent Darnell, and he focuses on and teaches emotional intelligence for contractors, and it is amazing. And I really think that's a game changer. I think that's something that gives companies, especially contractors, an edge when you develop your people skills, and that only helps your team, helps your selling, your business development, your relationships with clients. I think that's like the uncharted territory, and I think it's a real game changer for contractors, definitely. So that's very interesting to hear that that's what you've been focusing on. Let me ask you this. Where do you go to get advice when you need it? What do you do when you get stuck?
That's always a challenge. The consultant that I've just started working with has been a resource. I'm also currently part of EO, which is Entrepreneurs Organization, which is, guys that have gone out and started businesses, and we meet once a month and have a forum, and everybody you can't be a competition, you can't be friends, you can't be, it's a true confidentiality sounding board. And I've been meeting with that. I've been a part of that for the past 3 years. It's a great resource. It allows you to share issues that you're facing, challenges, kind of the stuff you can't talk about with your employees or your wife. Hey, we're doing really well, or no, we're not doing well. How do I fix this? What did you do? And it allows people to say, hey, when I went through that, this is what I did. And that's been a huge help to some of the stresses. Probably starting to transition, getting into a phase where my company is a lot bigger than a lot of the guys that are in my group that I'm with. and I'll probably look at doing a different type of scenario, whether that's Vistage or YPO or something that's different and more on the leadership management side of things, less than the startup side that EO is more involved in. But that's a natural progression through any business cycle.
So would you say being part of a group like that, like a mastermind group or the forum, would you say that's been instrumental in your success?
Yes, it's definitely helpful. It helps. It helps from a mental sanity almost, where you have somebody you can discuss problems, concerns with that isn't going to judge you.
Sure.
These are as being a business owner, you face challenges that people who are not in that situation don't understand. They don't understand the challenges. 80% of the world or 90% of the world doesn't understand the challenges of, hey, are we going to make payroll? Or we have to pay these bills, cash flow, and if they do understand that, they don't understand business development or they don't understand leadership. So they're, much more focused, whereas a owner, you have to be good at everything and, trying to figure out what you can do and share best practices with other individuals is very helpful, relaxing, and helps improve from a mental capacity. And we bring in outside leaders and speakers to try to help also. But sometimes it's just good to have a sounding board to talk about the 5% that you can't share with anyone else.
Yeah, and even coaches, business consultants, they, whether you talk to your banker or your lawyer or your CPA or a business consultant, they just don't know what it feels like to wear your shoes. And I remember those days when I had my business, like, man, how are we going to make payroll? We've got to make this work. Right. And what are we going to do? And it's fear and anxiety and, I wish I would have had a group of people that I could kind of lean on and say, hey, I need help. This has been one terrible week or month or whatever. And, what would you guys do in this kind of situation? So that's consistent with what I've heard from a lot of people. Well, we're just about out of time, but I want to ask you one last question. What advice would you give to the small business owner who is in like their first year or two of business? What are 2 or 3 actionable things? Well, let's put it this way. If you could go back and talk to Torrey in 2008, 2009, when you were 1 to 2 years into your venture, what advice would you give Torrey based on what you know now?
I think we executed very well. Executed very well on the game plan. With any startup business, you have to manage cash flow. That is the most critical component of the business, is managing that cash on a short-term and long-term basis. And watching what is coming in and what is going out, and our dollars being properly spent. Anybody that starts a business, a lot of people don't want to get into that granular level of what is the cash side. People always think, there'll be more to come, or I can make it on the next deal, or things will get better tomorrow. We all have ebbs and flows. And, the more you can put into a savings account or a rainy day fund, the better you will sleep at night. So, I've been able to do that. We have our ups and downs. But, I've always looked at being good at that. So I always tell people that is the most important component to watch on a daily basis. Don't be afraid to lose a project or lose something that you really like if it's going to have a negative impact on a company's cash position. And the second thing is, stay focused. I talk to guys that, they want to do this, they want to do that. It's kind of the shiny object syndrome that you talked about earlier, and guys that, are probably a lot smarter than me. And I've seen some of them fail because they just can't stay focused on what they're good at, and they think around the next corner is something better. It's sometimes it's just, hey man, play to your strengths, play to your core competencies, do what you can do and do it really well. And that's better than bouncing around and trying to do 100 different things. So, I kind of laugh as I tell people I'm probably not the smartest guy out there, but, we know what we do and we know we do it well, and we're going to continue to do that over and over and over again and get better at what we do. And that brings in more opportunities.
Yeah, Jim Collins talks about that in his book, Good to Great. He calls it the hedgehog concept. Yeah. And the hedgehog's good at one thing, rolling up in a ball, right. And that's it. He's got one move. He rolls up in a ball. Right. And most successful businesses that Jim Collins studied, they figured out what they were really good at, and they just did that. Mm-hmm. And it is not sexy always. Right. It's kind of boring sometimes, but, man, it just works.
Right.
Awesome. Well, Torrey, I really appreciate you taking the time to be on the podcast. I look forward to talking to you again in a year when you'll probably be breaking the $100 million mark in 2016. So thank you again for taking the time. It's been my pleasure.
Thank you, Todd. I appreciate the opportunity. That would be quite a lofty goal, but we're going to, like I talked about, we're going to keep doing what we can do, and, we'll see where it goes.
Right on. Well, thanks again.
You bet. Thanks. Bye-bye.
That was Torrey Hawkins, founder and president of Angler Construction out of Houston. If you want to find out more about his company, go to anglerco.com, Angler, ANGLERCO.com. And don't forget to sign up for the free online training just for contractors on how to get out of cash crunch mode and upgrade your profit margins. Go to constructionleadingedge.com/cash flow to get registered for that free training. My name is Todd Dawalt. I'll see you next time.